My husband sold my stuff while deployed, so I invited the affair partner to dinner. I stared at the empty space where my grandmother's antique jewelry box used to sit on our dresser, my hands shaking as I held my phone. The text from my husband Jake was still glowing on the screen. Had to sell some stuff. Emergency came up. Love you. Some stuff. He called my most precious possessions some stuff. It was 3:47 a.m. in Germany, where I was stationed at Ramstein Air Base, which meant it was barely evening back in Colorado where Jake was deployed. I'd come home from my shift as a communications specialist to find our base housing looking like we'd been robbed. The living room was practically empty, our wedding gift furniture gone, the coffee table my mother had bought us missing, even the damn throw pillows had vanished. But it was the jewelry box that broke me. The one that held my grandmother's pearl earrings, her wedding ring, and the locket with my grandfather's photo inside. The box itself was worth maybe $50, but those contents were irreplaceable. Priceless. I called Jake immediately. The phone rang 6 times before he picked up. Hey babe, what's up? His voice was too casual, too bright. The voice he used when he was lying. Where's my grandmother's jewelry, Jake? Silence. Then, what do you mean? I mean our house looks like it was ransacked and my jewelry box is gone. So I'll ask again, where's my grandmother's jewelry? Sarah, listen, I can explain. Explain what? How you sold my dead grandmother's wedding ring? How you got rid of the furniture we picked out together for our first home? My voice was rising, and I didn't care if the neighbors heard through these paper-thin base housing walls. I didn't sell the jewelry. Just the box. I kept all the important stuff in a safe place, I swear. But I needed quick cash in. Needed cash for what, Jake? Your deployment pay covers everything. We have savings. What emergency was so important that you couldn't even call me first? Another pause. Too long. Just. Things came up. You wouldn't understand. That phrase, you wouldn't understand, was his favorite deflection. He'd used it when he spent $300 on a new gaming setup. When he forgot to pay our car insurance and it lapsed. When he made any decision that affected both of us without including me in the conversation. Try me, I said, my voice deadly calm now. Look, I'll buy you a new jewelry box when I get back. A nicer one. And we needed new furniture anyway. I hung up. For the next hour, I sat on our bare living room floor, crying and trying to process what had happened. Then I got angry. Then I got curious. Jake was terrible at lying, always had been, but he was being especially cagey about this emergency. So I did what any suspicious military spouse with top-secret clearance and too much technical knowledge does. I started digging. His social media accounts were locked down tight, but Jake had always been lazy about password security. I tried our anniversary date, his mother's maiden name, his high school football number. Nothing. Then I tried Rangers 2019, the year he enlisted and his favorite sports team. Bingo. What I found in his Instagram messages made my stomach drop to the floor. Her name was Melissa Chen, and according to their chat history going back 4 months, she was a lot more than just an emergency. The messages between Jake and Melissa painted a picture that made me physically nauseous. 4 months of good morning beautiful texts, photos of elaborate dinners at restaurants I'd never heard of, and promises about their future together when his deployment ended. But it was the financial details scattered throughout their conversations that made my hands clench into fists. Can't wait to see you in that dress I bought you Friday night 2 hearts from 3 weeks ago. The dress cost $340 according to the photo of the receipt he'd sent her. Hotel suite is booked for the weekend. The one with the hot tub you wanted red heart from last month. I scrolled up and found his complaint about the price, $280 a night for 2 nights. Your car payment is covered this month, don't worry about it baby. That was from 6 weeks ago. Her car payment was $410. I did the math in my head, adding up every restaurant receipt he'd photographed to show off, every gift he'd bragged about buying, every bill of hers he'd casually mentioned covering. Just from what I could see in the messages, he'd spent over $3,000 on this woman in the past 2 months alone. $3,000. While I was eating MREs during field training to save money on groceries. While I'd been putting off buying new work boots because mine were getting worn down. While I'd suggested we skip date nights over video calls because the international calling plan was expensive. The worst part was reading how he talked about me to her. Sarah's always working anyway, she probably won't even notice I'm gone for the weekend, from a month ago, right after I'd pulled a double shift to cover for a sick colleague. She's so focused on her career, sometimes I feel like I don't even have a wife, from 3 weeks ago. This was rich, considering I'd specifically requested the Germany assignment to be closer to his deployment location. You actually listen to me, Mel. You get me in a way she never has, from 10 days ago. But the message that made me screenshot everything was from yesterday, had to liquidate some assets to keep funding our good times face with tears of joy Sarah will never find out. What she doesn't know won't hurt her. Besides, it's just stuff. We're building something real here. Assets. He called my grandmother's jewelry box and our wedding furniture assets. I spent the next 2 hours methodically screenshotting every message, every photo, every receipt. My communications training kicked in, document everything, build a timeline, gather evidence. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Jake's Emergency and saved it all. Then I started researching Melissa Chen. She was 26, lived in Colorado Springs about an hour from Jake's base, and worked as a receptionist at a dental office. Her Instagram was public, and it told quite a story. Designer handbags that definitely weren't in her salary range. Weekly nail appointments at high-end salons. Dinner photos at restaurants that charged $50 per entree. All of it starting exactly 4 months ago, right when her message history with Jake began. The girl had expensive taste, and my husband was apparently happy to fund it by selling off our life piece by piece. At 6 a.m. Germany time, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible just 3 hours earlier. I was going to call Melissa Chen. Not to confront her, not yet. First, I wanted to know exactly what Jake had told her about me, about us, about our marriage. Because something told me that little miss you get me in a way she never has didn't know she was the other woman. I pulled up her work number from the dental office website. It was 11 p.m. in Colorado, so I'd have to wait. But I had a feeling tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day for all 3 of us. The dental office phone rang 3 times before a cheerful voice answered. Mountain View Dental, this is Melissa speaking. Even her voice was perky. Of course it was. Hi Melissa, I said, keeping my tone friendly and casual. This might sound a little strange, but I'm calling about Jake Morrison. I believe you two know each other? There was a pause. Oh. Are you calling from his unit? Is everything okay? Is he hurt? Interesting. She was genuinely concerned, and she knew he was deployed. But her first assumption was that I was calling from his military unit, not that I might be his wife. No, nothing like that, I said carefully. I'm actually Sarah. Jake's mentioned you, and I was hoping we could chat. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was much smaller. Sarah? As in? Sarah? As in his wife Sarah, yes. Oh my god. I heard her chair squeak, like she'd sat down hard. Oh my god, I had no idea. He told me you guys were divorced. That it was finalized 6 months ago. There it was. The lie I'd been expecting, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the gut. We're very much married, I said, keeping my voice steady. In fact, our 3rd anniversary is next month. I'm going to be sick. Her voice was barely a whisper. I would never. I don't mess around with married men. Ever. He said you'd moved on, that you were dating someone new. He showed me the divorce papers. He showed you papers? That was a new level of deception, even for Jake. Yes. They looked official. He said you both decided the military lifestyle wasn't working, that you wanted different things. She was crying now. Oh god, I helped him pick out furniture for his place last weekend. He said he was finally ready to make it feel like home after living like a bachelor for so long. Furniture. My furniture. The wedding gifts, the coffee table from my mother, probably even my grandmother's jewelry box. He'd been shopping for our replacements with his girlfriend. Melissa, I said gently, what has he told you about his living situation? He has an apartment off base. He showed me pictures. Said he was excited to finally decorate it properly, make it nice for when I come over. She sniffled. The living room looked empty in the photos, so we went shopping. I helped him pick out a couch and some tables. He spent like $1,500 and said it was worth it to have a real home. $1,500. On furniture to replace what he'd sold. The same furniture we'd carefully chosen together when we got married, that we'd saved up for months to buy. Melissa, I need to ask you something important. Has Jake asked you for money? Or mentioned any financial emergencies? No, never. Actually, he's always paying for things. Dinners, my car payment when I was short last month, this gorgeous dress for a work party. He says he wants to take care of me. Her voice broke. Oh god, where is he getting the money? If you're still married, then his pay is going to your joint account, right? Smart girl. She was putting it together. He's been selling our belongings, I said quietly. Including some irreplaceable family heirlooms. Apparently to fund your relationship. The sound she made was somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Sarah, I am so sorry. I had no idea. I would never have accepted anything if I'd known he was married, let alone stealing from you. I believe you, I said, and surprisingly, I did. Melissa, I have a proposition for you. I could hear Melissa's shaky breathing on the other end of the line. What kind of proposition? I want you to meet me in person. There are things I need to show you, evidence that Jake has been lying to both of us. And I think we both deserve to know the full extent of what he's been doing. I don't know. This is so messed up. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Melissa, listen to me. You're a victim here too. Jake manipulated you just as much as he betrayed me. But right now, he thinks he's gotten away with it. He thinks I'm too trusting and you're too naive to ever figure it out. There was a long pause. What did you have in mind? I'm flying back to Colorado Springs next weekend. I have emergency leave coming to me, and I think it's time I paid my husband a surprise visit. I pulled up flight schedules on my laptop while I talked. Jake thinks I'm stuck in Germany for another 2 months. He has no idea I'm coming home. You want me to be there when you confront him? Not exactly. I took a breath, the plan crystallizing in my mind. I want us to confront him together. But not the way he'd expect. I want you to invite him over for dinner Saturday night. Tell him you want to cook for him, make it special. Romantic. Sarah, I can't. Not now that I know. Hear me out. You invite him over at 7. I'll show up at 7:30 as your surprise dinner guest. Imagine his face when he realizes his wife and his girlfriend have been comparing notes. Melissa was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, he really showed me divorce papers. They had official-looking stamps and everything. Can you send me photos of them? I'd love to see what fake divorce papers look like, considering I never signed any. Oh god, this is insane. How long has he been planning this? I pulled up more of the screenshots I'd taken. Based on his messages, he's been telling you we were divorced since your first date 4 months ago. But he was still texting me I love you every night and talking about our anniversary plans as recently as last week. What anniversary plans? He promised to take me to that new steakhouse downtown when he gets back from deployment. The one that just opened on Tejon Street. I scrolled through our recent messages. He said he'd already made reservations for October 15th. Melissa made a choking sound. Sarah. He's taking me there tomorrow night. He said it was going to be a special evening because he had something important to tell me. My blood went cold. What kind of something important? He's been hinting about our future together. About making things more serious. I thought maybe. She trailed off. You thought maybe what? I thought he might propose. He asked my ring size last week. The room started spinning. Jake was planning to propose to his girlfriend while still married to me, using money he'd stolen by selling my belongings. This had moved far beyond a simple affair. Melissa, I need those photos of the divorce papers tonight. And I need you to go through everything he's ever given you, gifts, receipts, anything with a paper trail. Can you do that? Yes. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I feel horrible. Don't. We're both victims of the same liar. But tomorrow night when you're at dinner with him, I want you to pay attention to everything he says about me, about our marriage, about his plans. Can you record it? Record it? Like, secretly? Your phone has a voice memo app. Just hit record and put it in your purse. I need to know exactly what story he's been telling you, especially if he's planning to propose. I can't accept a proposal from a married man. I can't be part of this anymore. You don't have to accept anything. Just let him talk. Let him dig his own grave. I pulled up the airline website. And Melissa? Don't break up with him yet. Don't let on that you know anything. Can you do that? This is crazy. Crazy as stealing your wife's dead grandmother's jewelry to buy your girlfriend a promise ring. We're just evening the playing field. She was quiet for a moment. Okay. I'll record dinner tomorrow. But Sarah? What happens after? I mean, what's your endgame here? I stared at the empty space where my jewelry box used to be, thinking about Jake shopping for furniture with another woman, using money he'd made selling our wedding gifts. I want him to face both of us at the same time and explain himself. I want him to look us both in the eye and justify what he's done. And then I want to watch his whole carefully constructed life fall apart. And then? Then we both get to decide what he deserves. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from Melissa and a text that made my stomach drop. Sarah, call me ASAP. Something happened at dinner last night. It's worse than we thought. I called her back immediately, not caring that it was 5 a.m. in Colorado. Sarah? Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying. I recorded everything like you asked, but... God, I don't even know where to start. Just tell me what happened. He didn't propose. He did something worse. I heard her take a shuddering breath. Sarah, he's been planning to fake his own death. The words didn't compute at first. What do you mean, fake his death? He told me last night that he's found a way to disappear from his deployment. He said there are guys who help military personnel stage accidents overseas, make it look like they died in combat, but really they get new identities and start over. I sat down hard on my empty living room floor. That's insane. That's not even possible. That's what I thought, but he had details, Sarah. Names of people, prices, timelines. He said it would cost $15,000, but then we could be together without any complications from his previous life. She spat the last 2 words like they tasted bitter. Previous life. He means me. He said you'd get his life insurance payout, $200,000, so you'd actually be better off financially. He acted like he was doing you a favor. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. Melissa, please tell me you have all of this recorded. Every word. 3 hours of him explaining how we'd move to Montana or Wyoming, somewhere remote, and start fresh. He even had fake names picked out, Michael and Maria Santos. Maria? He wanted you to change your name too? He said we'd both need new identities for it to work. New social security numbers, new birth certificates, the whole thing. Her voice cracked. Sarah, I think he's serious. He showed me photos of a cabin he wants to rent in Montana. Said he's already put down a deposit. The room was spinning. This had gone so far beyond an affair that I couldn't wrap my head around it. How much has he spent on this insane plan? $5,000 so far, just for the consultation and down payment. He needs $10,000 more by next Friday. $5,000. I thought about every piece of furniture that had vanished, every family heirloom he'd sold. That's where my grandmother's jewelry went, isn't it? Not just funding your dates, funding his escape plan. I'm so sorry, Sarah. When he started talking about it, I just nodded and smiled, but inside I was screaming. The way he talked about you, he said you were dead weight holding him back from his real life. Dead weight. The man I'd supported through basic training, through his struggles with military discipline, through every homesick phone call and deployment anxiety attack, I was dead weight. Melissa, I need you to send me that recording right now. All of it. Already done. I emailed it to you 20 minutes ago. Sarah, there's something else. He wants me to quit my job. Why? He said if I'm going to disappear with him, I can't have any loose ends tying me to my old identity. He wants me to give notice this week and tell everyone I'm moving back home to take care of my sick mother. Do you have a sick mother? My mom is perfectly healthy and lives in Seattle. But he's already created this whole backstory. He said he'd pay my rent and expenses for the next month while I transition out of my current life. I pulled up my email and started downloading the audio file. How much money has he promised to give you? $3,000 to cover my bills while I quit. Then another $2,000 for moving expenses next week. Her laugh was bitter. Moving expenses to fake my own death and run away with a married man who's been stealing from his wife. Melissa, you can't quit your job. And you absolutely cannot give him any indication that you're not going along with this. I know. I told him I needed a few days to think about such a big decision, and he said that was smart, that he didn't want me to rush into anything. She paused. Sarah, what if he's already set this plan in motion? What if he's planning to stage his death before you can get back to Colorado? The thought made my blood run cold. If Jake went through with this insane scheme, I'd spend the rest of my life thinking my husband had died in combat, grieving a man who was actually living it up in Montana with his girlfriend and my grandmother's jewelry money. When is he supposed to die? I asked. He said the timeline is flexible, but probably within the next 3 weeks. Before his deployment officially ends. 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks to stop my husband from faking his own death and stealing $200,000 in life insurance money to start a new life with his girlfriend. Melissa, change of plans. We're not waiting until next weekend. I booked the first flight out of Germany that same afternoon. 18 hours of travel time with layovers in Frankfurt and Denver, giving me plenty of time to listen to Melissa's recording and plan my next move. Jake's voice on the audio made my skin crawl. The casual way he discussed abandoning his military service, his marriage, his entire identity, like he was planning a vacation instead of elaborate fraud that would destroy multiple lives. The beauty of it, babe, is that Sarah will never suspect anything. His voice crackled through my headphones as my plane taxied down the runway. She's so trusting, so focused on following rules and doing the right thing. She'll grieve, collect the insurance money, and probably thank me for giving her a fresh start. Thank him. For stealing my life savings, selling my family heirlooms, and putting me through the trauma of thinking he died in combat. But it was the next part that made me screenshot my phone screen and email it to my personal lawyer back in Texas. Plus, I've been slowly draining our joint savings for months. Moving money into crypto accounts she doesn't know about. By the time I'm officially dead, there won't be much left in our regular accounts anyway. She'll need that insurance payout. He'd been systematically stealing our savings while I was working double shifts and eating ramen to contribute more to our emergency fund. The emergency fund that apparently no longer existed. I pulled up our bank app with shaking hands. Our savings account showed a balance of $847. 3 months ago, it had been $12,400. I deposited my entire re-enlistment bonus, $4,000, just 6 weeks ago. All gone. Converted to cryptocurrency and hidden away for his new life with Melissa. The recording continued with more horrifying details. Jake had been working with someone named Tony Reeves, supposedly a former military contractor who specialized in helping people disappear. For $15,000, Tony would create fake documentation of Jake's death during a training accident, complete with falsified military reports and witness statements. Tony says the key is making it look like an equipment malfunction during a routine patrol, Jake explained to Melissa. No body to recover, just enough evidence to confirm death and process the paperwork. Clean and simple. I googled Tony Reeves military contractor during my layover in Frankfurt. The only results were for a landscaper in Ohio and a retired dentist in Florida. Either Jake's contact was using an alias, or more likely, Jake was being scammed by someone who'd figured out he was an easy mark with access to money. The thought almost made me laugh. My husband was planning to fake his death with help from someone who was probably planning to take his $15,000 and disappear. Jake might end up actually missing, not dead, just broke and abandoned in some foreign country with no way home. When I landed in Denver, I had 4 missed calls from Melissa and a text that made my heart race. Jake moved up the timeline. He wants to do this Friday. Says something spooked Tony and they need to move fast. I think someone might be onto them. Friday. That was 4 days from now. I called her from the rental car counter. Melissa, what exactly did he say? He came over this morning panicking. Said Tony got word that military investigators were asking questions about suspicious deaths during deployments. They need to execute the plan before the investigation gets too close. That doesn't make sense. If investigators are already looking into this, wouldn't that make it more dangerous to fake a death right now? That's what I thought, but Jake said Tony knows what he's doing. He's already submitted the initial paperwork, accident reports, witness statements, everything. Jake just needs to transfer the final payment and disappear to the rendezvous point. Rendezvous point. This was sounding more like a bad action movie every minute. Where's the rendezvous point? I asked. Some abandoned mining town in Wyoming. Jake's supposed to drive there Thursday night, leave his car and all his personal effects, then Tony will pick him up and transport him to the safe house where he'll wait for his new documents. I pulled out of the rental car lot, heading toward Colorado Springs. Melissa, I need you to get me that address. The address Melissa texted me was for a place called Copper Falls, Wyoming, a ghost town about 3 hours north of Denver. I googled it while sitting in a truck stop parking lot, trying to wrap my head around how my marriage had devolved into a criminal conspiracy involving fake deaths and abandoned mining towns. Copper Falls had been deserted since the 1970s when the copper mine shut down. Population, 0. The perfect place for someone to disappear, or the perfect place for someone to get murdered by a con artist who'd already pocketed $15,000. I was starting to think Tony Reeves was running a more sinister game than simple fraud. Sarah, there's something else, Melissa said when I called her back. Jake wants me to drive up there with him Thursday night. Absolutely not. I tried to get out of it, but he's insisting. He said he needs me there for emotional support during the transition. He wants us to say goodbye to his old life together before starting our new one. The hairs on my neck stood up. Melissa, listen to me very carefully. This Tony person has taken Jake for $15,000. There is no fake death service. There are no new identities waiting in Montana. This whole thing is a scam. Then what happens Thursday night when Jake shows up expecting to fake his death? Either Tony disappears with the money and leaves Jake stranded in the middle of nowhere, or... I couldn't finish the thought, but the statistics I'd looked up were haunting me. Copper Falls was 40 miles from the nearest town, with no cell service and temperatures dropping to near freezing at night. Or what, Sarah? Or Tony kills him and takes everything. His car, his money, his military ID, everything needed to actually steal his identity instead of creating a fake one. Melissa's sharp intake of breath told me she was putting the pieces together. Oh my god. Jake thinks he's paying someone to help him disappear, but really he's paying someone to murder him. And you'd be a witness. Melissa, if you go to that meeting, you might not come back either. We have to warn him. Warn him? I pulled into a gas station, my hands shaking with adrenaline. Melissa, 3 days ago I thought my biggest problem was my husband having an affair. Now I find out he's drained our savings, sold my dead grandmother's jewelry, and planned to fake his death to start a new life. Why exactly should I save him from his own stupidity? Because if he dies, you'll never get your money back. And Tony will have gotten away with murder. She was right, but not for the reasons she thought. If Jake died, really died, I'd spend the rest of my life knowing I could have prevented it. Even after everything he'd done, I didn't want him dead. Divorced, broke, and facing fraud charges, maybe. But not dead. Okay, I said. But we're not warning Jake. We're stopping Tony. How? I pulled up the contact information for the Colorado Springs Police Department. By calling in a suspected murder plot to the authorities and letting them handle the dangerous con artist part. What about Jake? When the police arrest Tony, Jake will know someone tipped them off. Let me worry about Jake. I was already dialing the non-emergency line. Melissa, I need you to do something for me. Tonight when Jake calls you, tell him you're having second thoughts about Thursday. Tell him you need more time to think about leaving your whole life behind. What if he gets suspicious? Then tell him you love him but you're scared. Men like Jake eat that up, they love feeling needed and protective. Buy us 48 hours to set up a trap he'll never see coming. As I waited for someone to answer at the police station, I stared at my reflection in the gas station window. 3 days ago, I'd been a grieving wife who thought her husband was cheating. Now I was orchestrating a counter-operation to prevent a murder while simultaneously planning to destroy my husband's life. Military training really did prepare you for everything. The Colorado Springs Police Department was less helpful than I'd hoped. Ma'am, you're reporting a crime that hasn't happened yet, based on a recording of a conversation about a hypothetical plan, Officer Martinez explained over the phone, his tone suggesting he dealt with paranoid military spouses regularly. Without evidence of an actual crime in progress, we can't investigate someone named Tony Reeves who may or may not exist. But they're meeting Thursday night. In Wyoming. My husband is going to hand over $10,000 to a complete stranger in a ghost town. Wyoming is outside our jurisdiction. And adults are allowed to make poor financial decisions, even extremely poor ones. I hung up feeling defeated, but not surprised. Jake's plan was so outlandish that even I had trouble believing it, and I'd lived with his escalating lies for months. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa, problem. Jake's suspicious. He asked why I seemed different on the phone earlier. I think I'm a terrible liar. I was 20 minutes out from Colorado Springs when she called, crying. Sarah, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. He said something felt off about my voice earlier and he needed to make sure I was really committed to our plan. What did you tell him? I stuck to the script, said I was just scared about leaving everything behind. But then he asked to see my phone. My blood went cold. Did you delete the recording? Yes, but Sarah, he saw our call history. All those long conversations over the past 3 days. He knows I've been talking to someone for hours at a time. What did he say? He asked who I'd been calling. I panicked and said it was my mom in Seattle, that I was trying to figure out how to tell her about our relationship. Melissa's voice cracked. But then he said he wanted to call her himself. To introduce himself properly before we disappear together. Jesus. Jake was paranoid enough to fact-check his girlfriend's mother, but not smart enough to research the man he was paying $15,000 to fake his death. Obviously you couldn't let him call your mom. I told him she was at work, different time zone, all these excuses. But Sarah, he didn't believe me. He kept pushing and pushing until finally I broke down and admitted I'd been talking to a friend about our relationship. Which friend? I made up someone named Jessica from college. Said she was the only person I trusted to talk through such a big life decision. Melissa took a shuddering breath. He calmed down after that, said it was smart to have someone to confide in. But then he asked if Jessica knew any details about our plan. The smart play would have been to say no, that she kept everything vague. But I had a feeling Melissa's panic had led her somewhere more dangerous. Melissa, what exactly did you tell him? I said Jessica knew I was planning to move away with my boyfriend, but nothing about the fake death or new identities. Jake seemed satisfied with that. She paused. But Sarah, there's something else. He moved the timeline up again. To when? Tomorrow night. Wednesday. He said Tony called this morning and said they have a narrow window before the investigation closes in. If we don't do this tomorrow, the whole operation shuts down and we lose our chance. Tomorrow. I'd just lost 2 full days of planning time, and now Jake was walking into what I was increasingly convinced was a murder trap in less than 24 hours. Where are you supposed to meet Tony? Same place. Copper Falls. But now Jake wants to drive up early and camp overnight, make it feel like a romantic adventure before our new life begins. Her laugh was bitter. He packed a picnic basket and bought champagne. He thinks we're celebrating. I pulled into a McDonald's parking lot and grabbed my laptop. If the police wouldn't help, and I couldn't talk Jake out of this insanity, then I needed a different approach. Melissa, I'm going to ask you to do something that might sound crazy. Crazier than faking our deaths and moving to Montana? I want you to go with him tomorrow night. But not alone. Not alone? Melissa's voice pitched higher. Sarah, you just spent 10 minutes convincing me this Tony person is probably going to murder us both. Which is why you're not going alone. I'll be there first. I pulled up Google Maps on my laptop, studying the route to Copper Falls. I'm going to drive up there Wednesday afternoon and scout the location. By the time you and Jake arrive, I'll already be in position. In position to do what exactly? To document everything. Record Jake handing over the money, get photos of Tony, capture evidence of the fraud. And if things go sideways, to call for backup. What if Tony really is planning to kill Jake? You can't stop a murderer by yourself. She had a point. I was a communications specialist, not special forces. My combat training consisted of annual weapons qualifications and basic self-defense courses. But I had something more valuable than combat skills. I had motivation and a security clearance that came with certain resources. Melissa, what kind of car does Jake drive? A blue Ford F-150. Why? And Tony, did Jake ever mention what he'd be driving? He said Tony would be in a white van. No windows in the back. She paused. Oh God, that sounds exactly like something a serial killer would drive. It sounds like something someone who needs to transport unconscious people would drive, I corrected. Melissa, I think Tony's planning to drug Jake and steal everything, his truck, his military ID, his bank cards. Maybe kill him, maybe just leave him stranded. Either way, Jake's walking into an ambush. So what's your plan? Follow them up there and live stream Jake getting robbed? I stared at the map of Copper Falls on my screen. The town sat at the end of a single access road with no cell towers within 40 miles. The perfect place for a crime with no witnesses and no way to call for help. Unless you brought your own backup. Melissa, do you remember Jake mentioning when exactly they're supposed to meet Tony? Midnight. He said Tony wants to do the transfer when there's no chance of other people being around. Perfect. That gives me 8 hours to set up surveillance and get back up in position. I pulled up another number on my phone. I have a friend at Fort Carson who owes me a favor. You're bringing the military into this? I'm bringing someone with actual combat experience and authorization to carry serious weapons into this. Master Sergeant Rodriguez served 3 tours in Afghanistan and currently runs mountain warfare training exercises. If anyone can handle one con artist with a van, it's him. What if Jake sees you? What if he realizes this is all a setup? I thought about that for a moment. Jake was expecting to hand over $10,000 at midnight and disappear forever. He'd be focused on Tony and the money, not scanning the shadows for his wife. He won't see me. But Melissa, he's definitely going to see you panic when you realize what's really happening. You need to be prepared for that. What do you mean? I mean when Tony shows up and Jake hands over the money, and instead of fake death documents Tony pulls out a gun or a syringe or whatever he's planning to use, you're going to want to scream. You're going to want to warn Jake. You absolutely cannot do that. You want me to just watch while someone attacks Jake? I want you to trust that I'll handle it. Rodriguez and I will be close enough to intervene if things get violent. But if you blow our cover too early, we lose any chance of catching Tony in the act. Melissa was quiet for a long time. Sarah, what happens after? I mean, assuming we prevent Jake from getting murdered or robbed. He still committed fraud, stolen from you, lied about everything. What happens to him? I've been trying not to think about that part. Jake would face military justice for the financial crimes, probably a dishonorable discharge at minimum. Our marriage was obviously over. But he'd be alive, which was better than the alternative he'd chosen for himself. He faces the consequences of his choices, I said finally. But first, we make sure he survives them. Okay. I'm in. But Sarah? Melissa's voice was steadier now, resolved. After tomorrow night, I never want to see Jake Morrison again. Whatever happens up there, I'm done being part of his lies. That makes two of us, I said, already dialing Rodriguez's number. That makes two of us. Master Sergeant Rodriguez answered on the first ring, his voice sharp and alert despite it being nearly 10 p.m. Morrison? Jesus, I heard you were stationed in Germany. What's wrong? Danny, I need a favor. A big one. I gave him the abbreviated version, cheating husband, financial fraud, suspicious meeting in the middle of nowhere with a potentially dangerous criminal. I left out the fake death scheme, knowing it would sound too insane to believe. So you want me to provide armed backup while you catch your husband in the act of what, exactly? Handing $10,000 to someone who might rob or kill him for it. I pulled up the satellite imagery of Copper Falls on my laptop. Danny, the meeting location is perfect for an ambush. One road in and out, no cell service, no witnesses for 40 miles. Sarah, this sounds like something for the police, not a mountain warfare instructor. I tried the police. They said they can't investigate a crime that hasn't happened yet. I traced the access road on my screen. Look, I know this sounds crazy, but my husband is walking into a trap tomorrow night, and whatever he's done to me, I can't just let him get murdered. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Send me the coordinates. I'll drive up there Wednesday afternoon and scope it out. But Morrison? If this goes sideways, if shooting starts, you follow my orders without question. Understood? Understood. And Danny? Thank you. Thank me when we're all alive Thursday morning. I spent the rest of Tuesday night researching everything I could find about Copper Falls and planning our surveillance positions. The ghost town sat in a valley surrounded by rocky hills, with the old mine entrance on the north side and a cluster of abandoned buildings on the south. The access road curved around the eastern hillside, providing perfect vantage points for observation. Wednesday morning brought a call from Melissa that made my stomach drop. Sarah, Jake's acting weird. Really weird. He came over at 6 a.m. with coffee and bagels, said he wanted to spend the whole day together before our big adventure tonight. That doesn't sound weird. That sounds romantic. That's the problem. Jake's never been romantic. In 4 months of dating, he's never brought me breakfast or suggested we spend an entire day together. He's always been more of a dinner and sex kind of guy. I thought about that. Jake had always been lazy about romance with me too, especially after we got married. Grand gestures weren't his style unless he wanted something. What's he suggested for today? Shopping for supplies for our camping trip. He has a whole list, sleeping bags, portable camp stoves, enough food for 3 days. Melissa's voice dropped. Sarah, he's planning like we're going to be up there for a long time. But the meeting with Tony is just supposed to be one night, right? Get the fake documents and leave? That's what he told me before. But this morning he said Tony suggested we lay low at the ghost town for a few days after the death is official, let the military paperwork process before we head to Montana. My blood went cold. Melissa, there is no Tony. There are no fake documents. If Jake's planning to camp in Copper Falls for 3 days, he's either completely delusional or what? Or he's planning something else entirely. I grabbed my car keys. I'm driving up there right now. Do not let Jake out of your sight today, and do not let him change the meeting time again. What if he gets suspicious about why I'm being clingy? Tell him you're nervous about tonight and being close to him makes you feel safer. But Melissa, if he suggests leaving early, if he wants to drive up to Copper Falls before tonight, you call me immediately. I was 2 hours into the drive to Wyoming when Rodriguez called with an update that made me pull over. Morrison, I'm at the coordinates you sent. There's a problem. What kind of problem? There's already someone here. White van, no rear windows, parked behind the old mining office. Colorado plates, registered to Anthony Reeves. Tony was real. And he was already in position, 8 hours before the scheduled meeting. Can you see the driver? Negative. Van appears empty, but there are fresh tire tracks and the engine's still warm. Someone's been here recently. Rodriguez's voice dropped. Sarah, there's something else. I found camping gear stashed in one of the abandoned buildings. Sleeping bags, propane tanks, enough supplies for several people over multiple days. Jake's bringing camping supplies too. He told Melissa they might stay up there for a few days. That's not what I mean. This gear's been here for weeks, maybe months. Someone's been using this place as a base of operations. I heard Rodriguez moving, his boots crunching on gravel. Morrison, I think your boy Jake isn't Tony's first customer. What are you saying? I'm saying this feels like a practiced operation. Someone who's done this before, multiple times. Rodriguez paused. I found something else. Behind the old assay office. Looks like a grave. The world tilted sideways. A fresh grave? No. Maybe 6 months old. Definitely human-sized. I sat in my rental car on the side of Highway 25, trying to process what Rodriguez had just told me. Jake wasn't just walking into a robbery, he was walking into the hunting ground of someone who'd done this before. Danny, we need to call this in to Wyoming State Police. Already did. But they're 3 hours out, minimum. If Jake and his girlfriend show up at midnight as planned, they'll be here long before backup arrives. Then we stop them from coming. How? You said Jake doesn't know you're involved. I pulled up Melissa's number, my hands shaking as I dialed. He doesn't. But she does. Melissa answered on the first ring, her voice tight with panic. Sarah, thank God. Jake's completely lost it. He keeps talking about how tonight is going to change everything, how after tomorrow we'll never have to worry about money again. Melissa, listen to me very carefully. You cannot go to Copper Falls tonight. What? Why? What happened? I looked out at the Wyoming landscape stretching endlessly in both directions, thinking about Rodriguez's discovery. There's already a body buried up there. Someone who probably thought they were paying for fake documents too. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. When Melissa spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Oh God. Oh God, Sarah, Jake just left to get cash from 3 different ATMs. He said he needed the $10,000 in small bills. How much cash does he have access to? He showed me his phone, he's got crypto accounts worth almost $30,000. Said it was money he'd been saving for our future. Her voice cracked. That's your money, isn't it? From your savings, your grandmother's jewelry, everything he sold. $30,000. Jake had converted our entire life savings into cryptocurrency, probably thinking it was untraceable. Melissa, you need to get out of there. Right now. Pack a bag and go stay with a friend, your family, anyone. I can't just disappear. Jake will know something's wrong. Jake is planning to hand $10,000 to a serial killer at midnight. Something is already wrong. I started the car, heading back toward Colorado Springs. Tell him you're sick. Food poisoning, migraine, anything that means you can't travel. He won't go without me. He keeps saying he needs me there for emotional support, that we're starting our new life together. Then we need a different plan. I merged back onto the highway, pushing the rental car faster than was probably safe. Melissa, where exactly are you supposed to meet Jake tonight? He's picking me up at my apartment at 8. We're supposed to drive up together, get there around 11:30. She paused. Sarah, there's something else. He gave me a new phone this morning. Said I needed to get rid of my old one because it could be traced to my previous identity. A new phone. Jake was systematically cutting off Melissa's connections to her real life, isolating her before taking her to a remote location where no one would hear from her again. Whether he knew it or not, he was following the classic predator playbook. What did you do with your old phone? It's hidden in my bedroom closet. I told him I'd thrown it away. Good. Keep it hidden and charged. When Jake picks you up tonight, I want you to bring both phones. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how to save 2 people who didn't want to be saved. Melissa, I need you to do something that's going to sound insane. More insane than everything else this week? I want you to go with Jake tonight. But I want you to secretly call 911 from your hidden phone the moment you get in his truck. What? Sarah, you just told me not to go because there's a serial killer waiting for us. There's a serial killer waiting for Jake and his girlfriend. But what if his girlfriend had an emergency halfway there? I took the exit toward Colorado Springs, checking my GPS. What if Melissa Chen suddenly got violently ill an hour into the drive and Jake had to take her to the nearest hospital instead of continuing to Copper Falls? I could hear her thinking. You want me to fake a medical emergency? I want you to have a very real panic attack, which shouldn't be hard considering the circumstances. Start hyperventilating about an hour into the drive. Tell Jake you can't breathe, that something's wrong with your heart. Beg him to take you to a hospital. What if he refuses? What if he says we can't turn back? Then you'll know for sure that Jake is planning something worse than just meeting Tony for fake documents. I pulled into a gas station, needing to think through every angle. Melissa, if Jake refuses to get you medical help when you're having a panic attack, it means he's not planning for you to survive tonight either. The sharp intake of breath told me she was putting the pieces together. You think Jake's planning to kill me too? I think Jake owes Tony $30,000, not 10. I think the camping supplies and the 3-day timeline aren't about hiding from military investigators. I stared at my reflection in the gas station window, hardly recognizing the person looking back. I think Jake's been promised a cut of Tony's operation in exchange for bringing him fresh victims. That's impossible. Jake's not a killer. Jake's been systematically destroying every connection to his old life, draining bank accounts, selling belongings, cutting ties with family and friends. He's been lying to both of us for months without showing any remorse. I thought about the casual way he discussed my life insurance payout in the recording. Melissa, the Jake you've been dating isn't real. The Jake I married isn't real. We're both in love with someone who doesn't exist. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long I thought Melissa had hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. Sarah, Jake just got back. He's got $10,000 in cash and he's acting like we're going on our honeymoon. I heard her moving around, probably trying to get privacy. But there's something else. He brought a gun. My blood turned to ice. What kind of gun? I don't know anything about guns. It's black, small enough to fit in his jacket pocket. He said Tony recommended he bring protection in case they run into wildlife on the drive. Her voice cracked. There's no dangerous wildlife between here and Wyoming, is there? Not the kind that requires a handgun. I closed my eyes, trying to think through this new development. Jake had never owned a gun during our marriage. He'd failed his marksmanship qualifications twice during basic training. Melissa, did he say where he got it? He said Tony sold it to him yesterday for $500. Part of his relocation package. I heard her take a shaky breath. Sarah, normal people who help others disappear don't sell them weapons, do they? Normal people don't help others disappear at all. I checked the time, 3:47 p.m. Less than 5 hours until Jake picked up Melissa. Listen to me carefully. The gun changes everything. You cannot get in that truck with him. He's sitting right outside my apartment. He said he wants to keep me company while I get ready, make sure I'm not having second thoughts. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I think he's watching me. Making sure I don't run. I started the car, heading toward Melissa's address. What's your apartment number? Building C, Unit 247. But Sarah, you can't come here. If Jake sees you. Jake doesn't know what I look like in person. We've been apart for 8 months. I pulled up photos from my recent haircut and color change on my phone. Besides, I look completely different than I did when he deployed. What are you planning? I'm planning to be your friend Jessica from college. The one you've been talking to about your relationship. I merged onto Highway 24, pushing the speed limit. When I show up at your door in 20 minutes, you're going to introduce me to Jake as a college friend who drove down from Denver to meet your new boyfriend. He'll be suspicious. Why would Jessica drive all the way from Denver? Because Jessica is concerned about her best friend moving away with a man she's never met. Because Jessica wants to make sure this Jake guy is good enough for you. I took the exit toward Melissa's neighborhood. And because Jessica brought a bottle of wine and wants to toast her new relationship. I could hear Melissa thinking it through. What if he doesn't buy it? Then we'll know he's more paranoid than we thought. But Jake's ego is his weakness, Melissa. He'll want to impress your friend, prove that he's worthy of you. Men like him can't resist an audience. What about the meeting with Tony? Jake won't want to be late. Which is why Jessica is going to get very drunk very quickly and need Melissa to take care of her. I pulled into a liquor store parking lot. Food poisoning was too easy to fake. But a drunk friend who needs to be driven home? That's a responsibility Jake can't argue with. You want to get drunk? I want to pretend to get drunk. There's a difference. I grabbed a bottle of cheap wine and some crackers. Melissa, when I show up, I need you to play along perfectly. Can you do that? I think so. But what if Jake suggests bringing me along to Copper Falls anyway? What if he says we can drop you off on the way? Then I become the clingy friend who absolutely cannot be left alone when she's this intoxicated. I'll make such a scene about being abandoned that Jake will have no choice but to postpone his trip. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, messing up my hair and smudging my makeup slightly. Melissa, I'm going to save your life tonight. But I need you to trust me completely. I trust you. But Sarah? What about Jake? If we stop him from meeting Tony tonight, won't Tony just disappear? Won't Jake lose all that money and have nothing to show for it? I thought about Rodriguez's discovery, the camping equipment, the grave, the practiced setup. Jake was never going to get fake documents, Melissa. He was going to get murdered. The money was already gone the moment he sent that first payment to Tony. So we're not just saving Jake's life. We're saving him from losing everything he stole from you. We're saving him so he can face justice for what he's done. There's a difference. I pulled into Melissa's apartment complex, scanning for Jake's blue F-150. Besides, I'd rather have him alive and in military prison than dead and buried in some abandoned mine shaft. Even after everything he's done to you? I sat in the parking lot for a moment, thinking about the woman I'd been a week ago, trusting, focused on my career, planning anniversary dinners with a husband who was secretly planning to fake his death. That woman felt like a stranger now. Even after everything, I said finally. Nobody deserves to die because they were stupid enough to trust the wrong criminal. I parked 3 spaces away from Jake's truck and took a deep breath. Through Melissa's second-floor window, I could see 2 silhouettes, Jake pacing while Melissa sat on what looked like a couch. Even from the parking lot, his body language screamed impatience and barely contained energy. My phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez, State Police ETA now 11:30 p.m. Found 2 more disturbed Earth sites. This bastard's been busy. 2 more graves. Jake wasn't just walking into danger, he was walking into a serial killer's established hunting ground. I grabbed the wine bottle and headed upstairs, my hands surprisingly steady despite everything. I knocked on apartment 247 using the rhythm Melissa and I had agreed on, 3 quick knocks, pause, 2 more. The door opened immediately. Jessica. Oh my god, you actually drove down. Melissa's acting was better than I'd expected, though the genuine relief in her eyes wasn't hard to fake. Jake appeared behind her, and I got my first look at my husband in 8 months. He'd lost weight, probably from stress, and there was something different about his eyes, a hardness I'd never seen before. He looked me up and down with the calculating gaze of someone assessing a potential threat. Jake, this is Jessica Chen, my college roommate, Melissa said, using the fake last name we'd agreed on. Jessica, this is Jake Morrison. I stepped forward with a bright smile, deliberately stumbling slightly as if I'd been drinking in the car. Jake. Finally. Melissa has told me so much about you. I thrust the wine bottle toward him. I brought celebration wine. Though I may have started celebrating a little early during the drive. Jake's posture relaxed fractionally as he caught the wine bottle. Men like him were comfortable around drunk women, we seemed less threatening, easier to manage. Nice to meet you, Jessica. Melissa didn't mention you were coming down today. Last-minute decision. I moved past him into the apartment, scanning quickly for the gun Melissa had mentioned. When Mel told me you two were getting so serious, I just had to meet the man who's stolen my best friend's heart. Plus, I had a horrible breakup last week and needed a distraction. Melissa shot me a look, we hadn't discussed a fake breakup, but rolled with it. Jessica's been having a really tough time. Her boyfriend of 3 years just dumped her out of nowhere. Sorry to hear that, Jake said, but he was checking his watch. 4:23 p.m. Still over 3 hours until he planned to leave for Copper Falls, but clearly he was anxious about the timeline. I flopped down on Melissa's couch dramatically. You know what the worst part is? I found out he'd been lying to me for months. Stealing money from our joint account to spend on another woman. Can you believe that? What kind of person lies to someone they're supposed to love? Jake's face went completely still. That's terrible. Right? I mean, if you're going to leave someone, at least be honest about it. Don't steal from them while you're planning your exit strategy. I grabbed the wine bottle back from him. Sorry, I get a little intense about cheaters. Mel, do you have a corkscrew? Melissa disappeared into the kitchen, leaving me alone with Jake for 30 seconds. He was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, suspicion mixed with something that looked almost like guilt. You look familiar, he said finally. Have we met before? My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my voice light. I don't think so. I've got one of those faces, though. People are always thinking they know me from somewhere. I gestured around the apartment. Mel's told me so much about this place. She says you two might be moving soon? Something like that. Jake's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it quickly. Actually, Jessica, this is kind of bad timing. Mel and I have plans tonight. Oh, I know all about your big romantic evening. I interrupted, accepting the wine and corkscrew from Melissa. She's been so excited about this camping trip. That's why I wanted to meet you first, make sure you're not some creep who's going to murder my best friend in the woods. Jake's laugh sounded forced. Murder her? That's dark. You'd be surprised how many women disappear on romantic camping trips with guys they haven't known very long. I struggled with the corkscrew intentionally, playing up my supposed intoxication. But you seem nice. Very trustworthy. Jake's the most honest man I've ever met, Melissa said, and I caught the slight edge in her voice. He's always telling me honesty is the foundation of any good relationship. Absolutely, Jake agreed, but sweat was beading on his forehead. Jessica, about tonight. My phone rang suddenly. Rodriguez's number. Sorry, I have to take this. It's my sister. I stepped toward the kitchen, lowering my voice but making sure Jake could still hear. Hey, Lisa. Yeah, I made it to Mel's safely. What? Are you serious? When did this happen? I listened to dead air for 30 seconds, making appropriate shocked noises. Oh my god. Yes, of course I'll drive back tonight. Family emergency, I explained to Jake and Melissa, covering the phone. Lisa, I'm putting you on speaker so Mel can hear this. Jessica, what's wrong? Melissa asked, playing her part perfectly. I held the phone away from my ear as if someone was speaking, then brought it back. My dad had a heart attack 2 hours ago. He's in surgery at Presbyterian St. Joseph in Denver. Lisa says, she says it's really bad. Jake's expression shifted from annoyance to calculation. Jessica, that's awful, but I have to drive back tonight. Right now. I grabbed Melissa's hands. Mel, I'm so sorry to ruin your romantic evening, but I can't drive to Denver alone. Not like this. What if I get more bad news while I'm on the road? What if I'm too upset to drive safely? Of course I'll come with you, Melissa said immediately. Jake, we'll have to postpone. No. Jake's voice was sharp enough to make both of us look at him. I mean, this is important, Mel, but we can't reschedule tonight. The timing is, it's complicated. There it was. Confirmation that Jake valued his mysterious meeting over his girlfriend's friend's family emergency. I watched Melissa's face as she processed what he just revealed about his priorities. Jake, she said slowly, my best friend's father might be dying. And that's horrible, but you going to Denver won't change anything. Jessica can drive herself, or call another friend, or what? Let me sit in a hospital waiting room alone while my dad's in surgery? I let my voice crack convincingly. Wow. Melissa, you didn't tell me your boyfriend was this heartless. Jake's face flushed red. I'm not heartless. I just think. I interrupted, that any decent man would understand that some things are more important than camping trips. The room went dead quiet. Jake was staring at me with open hostility now, all pretense of politeness gone. Melissa looked between us like she was watching a tennis match, probably wondering if I was still acting or if this confrontation had become real. My phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez. Tony's van is moving. Headed toward town. Get out of there now. The blood drained from my face as I read Rodriguez's text. Tony wasn't waiting at Copper Falls anymore, he was coming here. To Colorado Springs. Possibly to this apartment. Everything okay, Jessica? Melissa asked, noticing my expression. Fine, I managed, deleting the text quickly. Just Lisa asking if I'm driving back tonight. But Jake was studying me now with laser focus. You know what's interesting? Your sister's name is Lisa, but when Melissa talks about her college friend Jessica, she always mentions how Jessica's an only child. Talks about it all the time, actually, how she envies people with siblings. My stomach dropped. I'd improvised the sister detail without thinking, and Jake had caught the inconsistency. Melissa's eyes went wide as she realized the trap I'd walked into. People call their close cousins sisters sometimes, I stammered. Do they? Jake pulled out his phone. You know what else is interesting? I called Melissa's mom in Seattle this morning. Just to introduce myself properly, like I mentioned yesterday. Funny thing, Mrs. Chen has never heard of any Jessica. Not from college, not from anywhere. The apartment felt like it was shrinking around us. Jake was standing between me and the door now, his hand resting casually in his jacket pocket where Melissa had said he was keeping the gun. Jake, Melissa said carefully, what are you talking about? I'm talking about your friend Jessica here, who knows way too much about cheating boyfriends and financial theft for someone I've never met before. His eyes never left my face. I'm talking about how she just happened to show up today with a family emergency that perfectly ruins our plans. And I'm talking about how she looks exactly like someone I know very well. My mouth went dry. I don't know what you mean. Don't you, Sarah? The name hung in the air like a gunshot. Melissa gasped, taking a step backward. Jake smiled, but it was the coldest expression I'd ever seen on his face. Hello, wife. You've changed your hair. I thought about running, but Jake was blocking the only exit. I thought about screaming, but the walls were thin and Jake had a gun. Instead, I did the only thing I could think of, I kept lying. I think you've confused me with someone else. My name is Jessica Chen, and Sarah Elizabeth Morrison, née Williams. Born September 15, 1994, in Austin, Texas. Communications specialist, currently stationed at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. Jake's voice was conversational, almost pleasant. Mother's maiden name Williams, father's name Robert, grandmother's name Dorothy, the same Dorothy whose jewelry box you've been so upset about. Every detail was correct. There was no point denying it anymore. Hello, Jake. Melissa was staring at me like I was a stranger. Sarah? You're actually Sarah? But when did you? She's been tracking us for days, Jake said, pulling his phone out with his free hand. Haven't you, honey? Reading my messages, talking to my girlfriend, planning this whole elaborate setup. He showed us his screen, our call history, dozens of long conversations over the past week. Melissa's phone records are very interesting reading. Jake, I can explain, Melissa started. You already did. Yesterday when I checked your phone more carefully and found out Jessica from college doesn't exist. He looked between us almost admiringly. I have to say, you two almost had me convinced. The drunk act was particularly nice, Sarah. Very believable. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Rodriguez, probably updating me on Tony's location. Jake noticed the sound. Expecting another call from your fake sister? Or maybe from whoever's helping you with this little ambush? He gestured toward my phone with his gun hand, still keeping the weapon concealed. Why don't you show us who's been texting you, Sarah? I had no choice. I held up the phone so he could see Rodriguez's message. Tony's van spotted on Highway 25 South. Moving fast. Estimate 20 minutes to your location. Jake's face went white as he read. Who the hell is Rodriguez? And how does he know about Tony? Jake's question hung in the air as the sound of a vehicle pulling into the parking lot drifted through the window. We all froze, listening to the engine shut off and a car door slam. That'll be Tony, Jake said, his voice surprisingly calm. Right on schedule. Jake, listen to me, I said desperately. Rodriguez is military police. Tony isn't who you think he is. He's killed people. We found graves at Copper Falls. You're not getting fake documents, you're walking into a murder. Jake laughed, but there was an edge of hysteria in it. Nice try, Sarah. You'll say anything to stop me from starting over. He moved toward the window, keeping the gun trained on us. Tony's been nothing but professional. He's already processed half the paperwork. A knock at the door interrupted him. 3 sharp raps, then silence. That's not Tony's signal, Melissa whispered. Jake's confidence wavered for just a moment. What do you mean? Tony said he'd call first, never just show up. Melissa was backing toward her bedroom. Jake, something's wrong. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Then a voice I recognized, Colorado Springs Police. Open up. My heart nearly stopped. Rodriguez must have called in backup when he saw Tony's van moving. Jake's face went from pale to gray as he processed what this meant. Police? He hissed. Sarah, what did you do? I tried to save your life, you idiot. I snapped, my fear finally giving way to anger. Tony Reeves is a serial killer. He's been using that ghost town to murder people like you, people stupid enough to pay for fake identities. The pounding on the door intensified. This is Sergeant Martinez, Colorado Springs PD. We need to speak with the residents of this apartment. Jake's hand was shaking now, the gun wavering between me and Melissa. This is all your fault. Everything was perfect until you interfered. Perfect? I stared at him in disbelief. Jake, you stole $30,000 from us, sold my grandmother's jewelry, and planned to fake your death. You call that perfect? I call that taking control of my life instead of letting the military own me forever. His voice cracked. Do you know what it's like being married to someone who cares more about her security clearance than her husband? Do you know what it's like discovering your husband has been systematically destroying your life to fund his fantasy escape plan? I shot back. I loved you, Jake. I would have worked through anything if you'd just been honest with me. Ma'am, we know you're in there. Please open the door. The officer's voice was getting more authoritative. Melissa stepped forward suddenly. Jake, put the gun down. Please. This doesn't have to get worse. Worse? Jake's laugh was bitter. I'm looking at a dishonorable discharge, military prison, and a wife who's already planning my funeral. How does it get worse? It gets worse when the police break down that door and find you holding 2 women at gunpoint, I said quietly. Right now you're facing fraud charges. Don't add assault with a deadly weapon. For a moment, I thought he might listen. His grip on the gun loosened, and something like recognition flickered in his eyes. The Jake I'd married, the one who used to cry during sad movies and send me flowers on random Tuesdays. Then the door exploded inward. What happened next took maybe 10 seconds but felt like 10 minutes. Officers poured through the doorway, shouting commands. Jake spun toward them, raising the gun. I threw myself at Melissa, knocking her toward the bedroom. Someone screamed, maybe me, maybe her. When the shouting stopped and the dust settled, Jake was on his knees in handcuffs, the gun on the floor 3 feet away. No shots fired, no one hurt. Just my husband crying like a child while officers read him his rights. Sarah Morrison? One of the officers approached me carefully. Master Sergeant Rodriguez sent us. Are you injured? I'm fine. I looked at Jake, still sobbing on Melissa's living room floor. Is Tony? Anthony Reeves was arrested an hour ago attempting to flee the state. We found evidence linking him to 4 murders over the past 2 years. The officer's expression was grim. Your husband would have been number 5. 6 months later, I sat in a courthouse in Colorado Springs, watching Jake sign the final divorce papers. He pled guilty to theft, fraud, and desertion, avoiding the weapons charges in exchange for cooperating with the investigation into Tony's operation. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by 6 months in military prison and the reality of what he'd almost done. When our eyes met across the courtroom, he mouthed I'm sorry, and I almost believed he meant it. Melissa was there too, sitting in the back row. She'd been key to unraveling Tony's network, for other military spouses had been targeted with similar schemes. She'd quit the dental office and started working with victim advocacy groups, helping other women recognize financial abuse. As for me, I was heading back to Germany in 2 days, newly promoted and newly single. I'd recovered most of the stolen money from Jake's cryptocurrency accounts, though my grandmother's jewelry was gone forever, sold to a pawn shop that had already resold the pieces. Walking out of that courthouse, I realized I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, free. Free from the lies, the manipulation, the constant wondering what was real in my marriage. My phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez, heard the divorce was finalized. Drinks to celebrate? I smiled, typing back, rain check. I have a flight to catch. Some chapters of your life end with explosions. Others end with paperwork and the quiet satisfaction of justice served. I prefer the paperwork.